Shalom Yashriel. So today's video is going to be about why I began keeping a lunar Sabbath. And not just a lunar Sabbath, but all of my Moedim I keep based on the lunar solar calendar. So I want to give just a quick go over as to why I do that. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So right there in verse 14, it says, "Let them be for signs, for seasons." The word seasons there, if you go back to the Hebrew, is Moedim. So let them be for the Moedim. And Yahuah made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Okay, that was verse 16. Alright, and we go to Psalms 104:19. Let me flip to that really quick. Okay, he appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Okay, so again, the word seasons here, if you go back to the Hebrew, is actually Moedim. So he appointed the moon for the Moedim. Okay. So let's go to Leviticus 23 to see what the Moedim is. What are Yahuah's Moedim? Okay. And you just read the whole chapter of Leviticus 23 to find out all the Moedim. Excuse me. I'm not going to read the whole chapter for time's sake, but I'm just going to give a quick go over of what the Moedim is. Okay, the first Moedim listed is the weekly Sabbath, so the Shabbat. Okay, and the second one mentioned is Passover, and then unleavened bread, and first fruits, and Shavuot, and trumpets, atonement, and Sukkot. So there's 8 Moedim altogether, and and here's what it says. I'll just give you just the beginning of what it says here. So we just read that the moon was given for the Moedim. Okay. And Yahuah spoke unto Moshe, saying, "Speak unto the children of Yashriel, and say unto them concerning the feast," that word in the Hebrew is Moedim. So, concerning the Moedim of Yahuah, which ye shall proclaim in the holy convocations, even these are my Moedim. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Shabbat of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Shabbat of Yahuah in all of your dwellings. These are the Moedim of Yahuah, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. And then it goes forth with Pesach and Matzah and all the following, the 7 others that follow the Shabbat. So the Shabbat was the first Moed listed in Leviticus 23. And the moon is for the Moed, as we just read in Psalms 104:19 and Genesis 1:14. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, the moon, sun, and stars wasn't created until day 4. So how could the moon be for the Moed if it wasn't even created day 4? And then we had our first Shabbat, of course, on the 7th day. Well, there is 2 things that it could be, and honestly, either one totally work, and it totally does not go against the moon being for the Moedim. For one, Yahuah says it's for the Moedim. So we have to keep that in mind right away. He says it's for the Moedim. Who are we to say, well, he didn't create it to day 4, so it can't be for the Moedim? Who are we to argue with Yahuah? So the Hebrew word in Genesis 1:14, where it says, "And Yahuah said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be seasons," be for signs, for moed and for days and years. No, I'm sorry, verse 16 is where I should be. And Yahuah made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. Okay, so the word made in that verse, he made them on, where it says he made them on day 4. Well, the word made there, if you go back to the Hebrew, is actually asa, or however you want to pronounce it. And that word would be better translated as appointed rather than made. So it would actually read, and Yahuah appointed 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. So actually it would be like he appointed them their jobs, their duties on day 4. And like they were already in existence upon day 1 when he said, let there be light. And then, of course, there came the lights in the heavens. And then on day 4, he created, he didn't create, but he appointed them their duties to be for the signs, the seasons, to give light for the day, light for the night, and so forth. And an example of this is in Psalm 104:19, where it says he appointed the moon for the Moedim. Well, that word appointed, if you look back, actually is the Hebrew word asah. So the word asah is more rightly translated as appointed rather than made. Okay, and so it's a lot of people's belief that, like, going a step further with that, in the beginning, Yahuah created the heaven and the earth, that in the beginning, when he created the heaven and the earth, that was a dark day. That was a conjunction day. That was a new moon day. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Yahuah moved upon the face of the waters. And Yahuah said, let there be light, and there was light. So it's kind of like a lot of people believe that day 1 was when he created. That light was, in fact, the lights in the heavens, the sun, moon, and stars, and that it was new moon day that he created the heaven and the earth on conjunction day. Now, whether that's so, or another possibility is that, and this is not far-fetched at all, that if he created the sun, moon, and stars on day 4, then he created them in the moon in its proper phase. In its proper phase, in order for it to be at 50% lit, a quarter moon phase, for the 6th day of the week, to signal tomorrow is my Sabbath. He created us as adults. Adam and Eve came into the existence as adults in the proper phase, if you will, that he wanted them to be in. So why is it so far-fetched to think that he created the moon in its proper phase that he wanted it to be in, that would have made it give the correct signal on day 6 that says tomorrow is my Shabbat? So that's the 2 things. Some people lean one way or the other. I haven't really took a stand one way or the other as of yet. I see both of them working, that could work fine. But the main point is he did create the moon for the moed. That cannot be argued. He said that. I'm not going to argue with Yahuah. Okay, and other reasons I keep a lunar Sabbath is because the Saturday Sabbath, or any other day on the beast calendar, the Gregorian man-made calendar, eventually would come on a new moon day. Saturday will eventually be on a new moon day on the Gregorian calendar. And if we turn to Ezekiel 46, then we see that's not Yahuah's plan. That is not possible on Yahuah's calendar. So the Gregorian calendar, along with the Saturn's day, Shabbat, cannot possibly be the calendar that Yahuah wants us to use, because listen to this. Again, Ezekiel chapter 46. Thus says Yahuah, the gate of the inner court that looks toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. But on the Shabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. Okay, so in the day of the new moon and in the day of the Sabbath, the gate to the inner court is open for worship. But on the 6 working days, the gate is shut. So we see a distinction here. We see 3 separate types of days. So if you are keeping a Saturday Shabbath and New Moon Day happens to come on your Sabbath, then you're in error. And it goes totally against what Ezekiel 46 says. And it's very important because we see a thus says Yahuah. So anytime we see thus says Yahuah, we better listen up. So New Moon Day cannot come on a Sabbath. What if your New Moon Day comes on a work day? Are you going to worship or are you going to work? Because according to Ezekiel 46, a New Moon Day cannot come on a work day and it cannot come on a Sabbath day. So that verse, those verses alone, it really made it click for me. And those, to me, are very powerful verses that completely destroy the Gregorian calendar Sabbath keeping. So here is another verse that's pretty cool. It tells us basically that we cannot buy, sell, or trade on New Moon Day either. This is Amos chapter 8, verse 4 through 5. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell our corn, and the Shabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances to deceit. So these people were wanting New Moon Day along with the Sabbath day. They were wanting those to be over. So as you know, well, you may not know, but the last Sabbath of the month is followed by a New Moon Day. So you would have 2 days in a row that you can neither buy, sell, or trade. So they were wanting to know when would the Sabbath and the new moon be over that they could sell things. So you can't buy, sell, or trade on New Moon Day either. And there's very many instances that New Moon Day is mentioned. Isaiah 66 for one, that shows us that New Moon Day and Sabbath are totally different days. But they are both worship days. So we seen right there in Amos 8 that we can't work for gain. We can't work for money on New Moon Day. But if you look in Exodus, I forget the chapter right away, but you see that the building of the temple took place on New Moon Day. So, there's not as much restrictions on New Moon Day like there is the Sabbath, that we can't necessarily work, but you can't work for profit, work for money on New Moon Day. Okay, so Isaiah 66, we see in verse 23, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, says Yahuah. So we see another says Yahuah. And so New Moon Day is a worship day. So if New Moon Day is coming on your work day and you are working for money, then you are in error. It is not a day to work for profit. Okay, so on a final note, because I want to make this video quick, not to rush the matter, but just because more people seem to watch it all the way through if they're shorter videos. So another reason that made me start keeping Lunar Sabbath, besides the wonderful evidence that I've already given in scriptures, that that's Yahuah's clock, the sun, moon, and stars. Without movement, you can't keep time. It's just like the hour hand, the minute hand, and the second hand on a regular clock. You can't keep time without movement. And that's what the sun, moon, and stars do. But anyway, every single Sabbath that you will find within the scriptures, that you do have enough evidence given within the text to pinpoint it to a certain date. Every single Sabbath, I'm aware of about approximately 15 at this time. But every single one of those that can be pinpointed to a date are always on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th day of the month. and that's based on a lunar solar calendar, because those are the days that are always, that's always your Shabbos. So that's a whole nother video. I will go over those in a whole nother video. And I will go over in another video some of the things that some people use to debunk the Lunar Sabbath. And I will show you how that they most definitely do not debunk the Lunar Sabbath. Like, for instance, David and the showbread. And like, for instance, the counting of the Omer. And just different little things like that. So I'll go over that in a whole nother video, as well as the calendar itself. And so I'm going to try to keep these videos short. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time. Shalom.